So again, this week, what I plan to do, because we have a 2 hour session this evening because there's no space to do another class, that I missed last week. So this week, the plan is to go over a little bit more nuts and bolts of practice. Some of it you may have heard before, but it is in the content of the module. Refuge, seven limb, mandala, these kind of more things that we want to try and slowly introduce, even if it's like just piece by piece. Like, what does a basic practice look like? So going over a little bit more of that. And then next week, a little bit more into some hints and advices, how we can sort of deepen and broaden our practice or even simplify it if we need to do that sometimes. How can we work according to our time frame, how much time we've got, what we can do when. And so, times when we don't have a lot, how does that look like? Times when we've got more time, and just sort of more general hints to keep us inspired in the practice, because we need that. That's so important. So I'll go into more of that sort of experiential deepening next week. This week's more about just covering like mandala and seven limb and really what we're trying to bring into our practice, what creates a sort of more rounded practice. So that's those 2 weeks. And then of course we'll have the practice day when we try and do a little bit more meditation to see how we can sometimes simplify our practice but still get something out of it. And when we've got more time, how can we deepen it? When we've got more time, how do we use that time in a beneficial way to deepen our practice? So that's what I'm hoping to do in the next couple of classes plus in the practice day. Okay, so we're going to start with about 10, 15 minutes of meditation. And then we will go into those aspects of the practice that I want to try and cover as much of that this week as possible. So let's just take a moment to settle into our meditation position. Always good to take a couple of just long, slow, deep breaths, inhaling into the body, exhaling out. Just a couple of times, just to land here in the class, in the environment, our meditation space, our teaching space there. A couple of minutes just to go through the points of the posture in the body. And as we do that, checking our posture. Just releasing any tension in the body, checking the posture. So starting at the crown and just using breath and awareness, as we've done many times, to stream through the body and just check the posture at the same time and release any tension around where we hold tension most, So we had a beautiful Tara retreat with the Angie Rinpoche a week and a half ago. And he also, always we have to start with the body, we have to tune into the body first. And just using the breath and awareness, it's like a bit of concentration already, just to scan through the body, using that muscle of awareness, but using it in context of just checking their body gently and kindly. And with clarity, so we inhale and just move through the facial muscles, the skin, the facial muscles, blood, inside, outside, a few breaths down through the crown, in through the face, the back of the throat, releasing and relaxing. Down through the neck. And as we go through the neck, just checking the crown of the head, Back of the neck, kind of straightening up a little bit as we just release and open up. So the crown kind of goes towards the sky, chin's tucked under. Soft through the jaw, the back of the throat. Tongue on the palate. Feeling like the breath and awareness is a bit like a fresh, cool breeze on a hot day. Gently cooling and embracing our body and our emotional world as we just go down through, checking the posture. Again, embracing the spinal energy a little bit down the back of the body a few times. And just gently straightening up the back. A few breaths. Down the front of the body as well. Opening up the chest, shoulders. Just placing them back, down the back, the shoulder blades. You can almost like roll your shoulders back and placing them gently down the back. Opening up the front of the body and moving down, breathing a few deep breaths into the belly area, releasing, relaxing, the tension of the day, the build-up of the day. It just happens because we're in samsara, we cling, we grasp, so it gets caught in the body. Few breaths, just connecting with the hips, wherever we are with the legs, wherever we are with the hips, what we need to support the upper part of the body, and just being also with that experience of the sit bones on the cushion. The groundedness. And just checking in with the quality of our own mind right now. Or how's our mind feeling? Are we tired? A bit agitated or feeling happy, open? Just check up what's going on in our sort of emotional world right now. So with all the turbulence that's going on in the world right now, so much change, and many people, they don't know where to go to refuge, in this time of change, uncertainty. So in many ways, we're very fortunate to have the wisdom of the Dharma in our life, in our world. We can all agree it really helps us to have a sense of balance, peace, and perspective in these times. Having this kind of more inner refuge. Having some wisdom to work with our mind and emotions. So we're all very fortunate. Just feeling, if you can, connecting with that fortune, that joy, happiness, whatever feeling we have of having being here and having access to these teachings. So in our last class, we talked about the importance of creating a space, an external meditation environment. No matter how simple or small, we need that space to help us develop in the path, to work on our stuff. It's like our enlightenment workshop space. Or even our self-development. workshop space, whatever we want to call it, maybe, we can call it our altar room, but maybe we want to have another name for it, that inspires us to go there, to sit there and be there. So it's so important to have that space, physical space, to develop our hearts. This is like the first part of developing a daily practice, creating that space. The holy objects, that environment, combined with some basic prayers and practice, help to activate our wisdom. There's a way that it works together to activate our wisdom. So when we sit down, and just be in the environment, whether it's our texts or, statues, pictures of teachers, light offerings, it's like when we sit down, it's like helps, it's like a light going on in a room, or lighting a candle flame. Something happens there, it activates our wisdom. We should check that out, There's a power in that environment. And similarly, every time we engage in the preliminary practices, we're kind of kindling the fire of that wisdom. Because it's really the wisdom, it's the main one that we need to get out our delusions. The more we move into these modules, the more we see the importance to develop definitely compassion. We're all moved by these teachings on kindness and compassion. But the main one that really purifies everything is this kind of wisdom, realizing emptiness. Because right now, it's like we're in our own cell. I used this analogy during the previous retreat with Rinpoche. It's like we're in this cell in a prison. So when you're in a cell, you've got prisoners next door. You can sort of hear from time to time what's going on, but we're all in our own little cell block, our own little cell. So we can hear noises next door, the guards passing. We have some idea of what's going on, but we can't see exactly everything that's going on. Just even though we're in the prison, never mind on the world outside. So it's a bit like that with our ignorance. That's how the Buddhas see us. We're in this cell all the time. And we have some conventional wisdom. We know he's there, she's there, this looks like that, he looks like that. With table, chair, we get all these things. That's conventional reality. So we have a little bit idea of that. But basically, our ability to see beyond conventional phenomena is really blocked. We can't see the pure nature of ourselves and the pure selfless nature of others and phenomena. So for the Buddhas, it's like we're in this cell all the time. But as we go through the Discovering Buddhism and as we start to engage in these daily practices, because of the power of them, sitting on the cushion, the objects, the altar, the practices, it starts to illuminate that wisdom. So we start to see the nature of our delusion, how our mind's not functioning in this wisdom all the time. Not with a mind of judgmentalness, it just gives us a clarity to see through the clouds of our mind. So going on the cushion's a little bit like when we get out of the cell and then we get some daylight. Prisoners are allowed to go out. I don't know, some prisoners get out once a day, some once a week, and they go into the yard and it's like, wow, this is so nice. They can see the sky. They see more. They feel fresh, mind feels expansive. So hopefully when we go on the cushion, we get more of that experience, like getting out of the cell. And just spaciousness, clarity, peace start to happen in our mind. That's through the continuity practice we get that experience. So again, that's really how the Buddhas see us. We are precious human life. We have this opportunity to get out of the cell and meditate, be in the yard, with all the other prisoners and enjoy that for a while, like our Dharma friends. And eventually, through the power of practice, we get out of the prison altogether when we develop this wisdom fully. This is a precious human opportunity, being in the yard, hearing the teachings, being with each other, enjoying and discussing and, you know, listening and reading. And that's like so precious, you know. So just like me, all beings are in this kind of cell of samsara, you know, not clear, wisdom not functioning as to how we really exist, how others exist. So that creates a whole torrent of other delusions, anger, fear, pride, jealousy. It's all coming from the basic fundamental wrong view of self. So how wonderful it is if me, all my friends, family, all beings, animals, we all have Buddha nature. We all have the seeds of ignorance. We all have the potential. So how wonderful for all beings could experience this wisdom, could awaken this. But first I need to awaken it in myself. And to do that, I need to rely on the Buddha, those who embody the teachings for us, you know, those who have more experience than us. Buddha is completely embodied. His teachings, the medicine, the wisdom, of course, the bodhicitta, compassion as well, but the wisdom that liberates, the Dharma, and then the Sangha, are friends who are on the path together, who are in the yard together, enjoying the sunlight of the teachings. So, you know, with that kind of feeling of like, wow, how wonderful it would be. And, you know, because we don't want to fall into another dark place where we're always in the cell, like lower realms. We never get out of that. That's like being in the lower realms. We never have even a bit of space in the yard. You know, we're just always in the cell. That's the kind of experience of the lower realms. Difficult to access spirituality there, spiritual teachings. So, you know, to just at least support us out of that state. So we always get into the yard until we finally get out of the prison altogether. Me and all beings go for refuge in the great qualities that we studied in the first module of the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha. So as we do at the beginning, we just recite this verse 3 times. We'll do one chant in Tibetan, one in English, 2 in English, just so you get a little bit practice with the Tibetan. So really feeling like you always want to be in the yard at least, not in the cell. You know, every day we try to get into the yard. And then for every life, we want to have the opportunity to get into the yard to develop this incredible wisdom that's embodied in the Buddha. That's the realization of the Dharma. And that's the, you know, the Sangha all striving to develop together. We imagine all beings around us, all of us, maybe all develop this wisdom by taking refuge as the basis in the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha. Oi Sangye Chodan Sogi Chognama Janju Bardu Dagni Kyapsuchi Dagi Chin Sogi Be Sonamge Drola Penjir Sangye Drupar Shuk. I take refuge until I'm enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my merits of generosity and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit transmigratory beings. I take refuge until I'm enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my merits of generosity and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit transmigratory beings. Let's just take a moment for that to land. May I become a Buddha. May I continue to develop myself step by step, with perseverance, with patience. And this and all the future lies up to enlightenment for all beings. Okay, so just a review, a little bit of what we did, because it's been a while. So what we did, just, yeah, recap of the last time. Basically, as we said, we started, there's these preliminary practices that we need to sort of develop, these basic fundamental practices that we did touch on as well on how to meditate. But we're just, again, going over them a little bit more deeply this time. And you saw this, I put this slide up the last time, but just something this is something we need to imprint imprint in the brain, you know, there's a few things, there's a lot we need to imprint, but this is another one. What makes up a spiritual practice? You know, what ingredients do we need, you know? So actually, I'm going to ask, who remembers, who remembers from last time? What are there's 4 parts to what Manjushri said to Lama Zopa Rinpoche. Of course, we're in the Geluk tradition, but these are in all there's 4 schools in this, you know, in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition. So these are in all 4. It's not just, oh, Lama Zopa Rinpoche said, and the other ones, they don't do that, you know. They all do this, you know. It's just that it was very clearly elucidated by Lama Zopa Rinpoche when he asked Manjushri. They were all really doing it, but it was just clarifying again, these are the components in terms of like how your spirit, they all need to be in there. And then we show you, when I show you how to do a basic daily practice, they are all in there. So any hands, just looking across the board, any hands remember? Oh, I saw a hand go up there. Kate, yes, Kate, what are the 4, or can you remember, whatever ones you remember?
I'm looking at my previous notes. Is that okay?
Okay, well.
Somebody else to do it. Okay. Purify obscurations is number 1, and number 2 is collect merit and virtue, and number 3 is to make requests, and 4 is to meditate.
Okay, well, I'm glad you've got the notes at least. That's very good, yeah.
Yes, sorry, I wouldn't have remembered that.
Yeah, it's not easy to remember, but again, that's why I wanted to go over it, because this is because we need these 4 aspects, then you can see how when we go on to how do you do a daily practice, you see, well, this is how they're made up in this way, because this is what they need to compose of, you know. So this is what we need for a practice to really kind of start working, you know, in our minds, these 4 aspects. So purification, collecting merit, goodness, good karma, making requests, and then it's also meditate means like whether you want to meditate on the Lam Rim, you know, we're going through the Lam Rim. So what makes the Lam Rim really work, start to move our minds, is these other 3. You see, so if we purify, collect merit, make requests, then when we meditate on the Lam Rim, it's like we start to feel something. Otherwise, as I mentioned in the previous class, we just have this, we develop this danger insensitivity to Dharma. Oh, I've heard that, I know that intellectually, but it's just a dry idea in your mind, you know. Maybe the first time you hear karma and it's like, wow, this is great, you know. You hear a teaching and then you hear it 2 or 3 times, and you're like, oh yeah, I've heard that before. I mean, I think we've all been there, you know. So you don't get that experience. We need to kind of always, you know, the daily practice composes of it's you know, it's got in these 3 aspects, so that every time we want the experience when we go to teachings, it's like fresh, something moves our mind. Now, the whole teaching might not, but at least you hear 2 or 3 things and you go, wow, I just feel that deeper now. That makes more sense to me now. I never really heard it like that the last time. That's what we need to keep doing. I mean, after being in this 25, 30 years, there's you know, I know there's a danger. You just say, oh yeah, I've been there, you know. And it doesn't, you don't feel like that word's touching you, you know, it's not moving your heart, you know. So, and of course it depends on the karma you have with teachers. Certain teachers, you know, you will have more karma, and they, you know, you hear those teachings and they like, you get these, you know, some sort of inner experiences, you know, so that makes a difference too. But then even if you keep going to the same teacher and then you don't do these, no matter how powerful the teacher, it'll just become like dry knowledge, you know. Lama Zopa Rinpoche used to talk about that a lot, you know, so we do need these 3. It's a bit like you go, you know, you do a yoga course and you just engage in it in an intellectual level, but you never do the postures. You know, you just think, oh, that looks nice. Yeah, I know that one. That's, you know, that posture, you go like this and that, and you can write it in the book, but you never do it. So you don't know what it feels like in your body, you know. But you know it all intellectual. So it can be like that, you know, happen any spiritual path. You know, we've seen that over the centuries, you know. So this is the sort of you know, this is the 4 aspects that we use, the 4 components, so that we try and avoid that danger, you know, and the Dharma becomes always alive and juicy for us, and it's moving our mind and heart. It's going for the head to the heart. Yes, Stan?
I wonder if you can say something more about the aspect of making requests to a field of merit.
Is my volume down a little bit? Can you all hear me? Because I can't hear you very well, Stan. I'm wondering
I'm
if it's
sorry.
you.
I'm on headphones now. I can speak louder because my
Oh, you're asking me about making requests. So
yes.
we are going to go into that. This is
Okay.
just showing you. So we're going into the practice to show you where each of those are now, you know,
Okay.
in the practice. Yep. So
Okay.
we talk more about that.
Thank you.
Okay, so that's that part. So, you know, we have these six, again, a few more numbers and so we have these aspects. And then last week, so we have this. So what we're really covering this week is, so how do we get these four aspects into the components into the practice? Last week we said the first one is setting preparatory practice, and this is it's in your readings. First one is cleaning the room and arranging the altar. You know, that's the first one. The second one here is making offerings. You know, and so one of the main ones, I'm not going to go into great detail on the water bowl offerings, how you do it, because that would be a whole class, almost. And I believe you can we have a book, I think it's in your readings, and if not, you can buy by donation on FPMT store, altar setup, and how to make water bowl offerings. It's a very small booklet, but now it's just a downloadable one. Altar setup and offerings, you know, it's something like that. If you have any more questions, ask me. I don't have the exact name of it, and that explains, but I believe you have in your notes as well, how you do the water bowl offerings. But just to give you an idea, so setting up the water bowls, of course, when you make offerings, that's creating merit. So in terms of those components of practice, when we set up water bowl offerings, we create merit, we purify. Because water, I mean, as I say, I've done many, it's also a preliminary practice in terms of a nundro. Some of you are familiar with the term nundro. It's a Tibetan word for preliminary practice, like you can do 100,000 this, 100,000 that, prostrations, water bowl offerings, guru yoga, mantras. That comes in around module 14 when we go into like more extensive preliminary practices. Right now, these are the basic preliminaries. But even in the context of water bowls, you could do 7 a day. But if you want to go deeper into these Tibetan Buddhism, there'll be a point when you want to actually start doing something called a preliminary practice, 100,000 or maybe 20, 30, 40,000 of a particular practice, which could include water bowl offering. So, but this is just a daily practice we try and do. So we obtain 7, we try and get a set of 7 water bowls. You can also just do 1 if you don't have enough space, because water, this is the qualities of offering water. It's cool, which by offering water, you achieve pure ethics. It's delicious. If you offer, well, I mean, it's very satisfying, delicious. We need that, and it's got especially after there's a practice called nune, abiding in fast, what I think I mentioned before. So it's a 2-day practice, and the second day you don't eat or drink. So by the third day, the water becomes unbelievably delicious, For us, it's just every day, maybe drinking water, maybe we don't have this experience of that. But if you don't drink for a day and then you drink water, it's like, well, we need it. It's so fundamental for our existence. And it's also got very delicious, So it's got that, so it creates the cause for us a delicious food by offering it. For our mind to become pliant and supple, soft, supple like water, soft like gentle mind stream. Clear for clarity, wisdom, because it's clarity. Odorless to purify karmic obscurations. Easy on the throat to have pleasant speech. And kind to the stomach, so it helps to purify, heal us from illness. So that's the kind of benefits we get. All those benefits just by offering water to the Buddhas, something that's, especially if we're a little bit maybe tight-minded or if we don't have a lot of resources. I mean, right now, water is becoming more and more precious. It always is, but we know in the world it's becoming more precious. So, but right now it is something easy enough for us to offer. So that's the other benefit, it's easy right now for us to offer. So I would say, just to share in a brief way, of course, I offered many thousands of water bowls, and that was my main preliminary practice that Lama Zopa Rinpoche gave me for many years. But my experience of water bowl offering was it purified, you know, when I was a new nun, when I was a new, you know, I got ordained in my 20s. And so, you know, as Westerners, we're quite harsh on ourselves, you know, can anybody identify with that? Or I'm seeing a lot of nodding. I mean, we have a lot of like, you know, and that's one of the first obstacles for us entering into a meditation practice is like, how do we deal with that mind, you know? So I had that similarly, you know, I didn't come out of my mum's womb as a Tibetan Buddhist nun, all purified and all that. I mean, I was still born into samsara. I had fortunately the karma to be a nun. But I still, you know, my early days, I still had to deal with a lot of that low self-esteem stuff and, you know, being harsh on myself, not able to rejoice in oneself, you know, really just truly, pure, you know, sort of clearly, you know. So a lot of that. So after doing a certain amount of water bowls, what I noticed is that just went away. I mean, it just cleaned out of my mind. I didn't purposely try and think, I have to meditate on this and really work with this and do the emotional, you know, I didn't think I'll have to sit there and really move through this. I mean, I kind of knew it was there, but it's difficult because it's kind of there. And, you know, I could, you know, I could sort of see it, but you're also embroiled in it sometimes, yeah? So what my experience, and I've shared this before, so some of you have heard this, but this is my advertisement for water bowls. This is my advertisement for preliminary practice. From my own experience, after I did a certain amount of water bowls, it just went away. I just didn't beat myself up like that anymore. I just didn't feel bad, guilty, all that cultural sort of Western things that we just have. It wasn't there. It was like, wow, I just kind of realized I did the practice intensely for a while. And then after about some months after doing it, I just checked my mind and I thought, oh, I'm not doing that anymore. It just was gone, you know? So it's like magic, you know? So what happens is it's that quality of my mind softened because it's a tough kind of concrete, hard mind, you know, when you're beating yourself and you're stuck in that, you know, and it's self-focused. And then we beat ourselves up because we can see it. And it's just this ongoing thing, you know, and then low self-esteem, not feeling good and So anyway, I just found that, you know, for me, and of course, that's the practice that Lama Zopa Rinpoche gave me, you know, for me, that really, really helped with that mind. It really just, without me even having to like really think about trying to get rid of it or doing other meditations and analytical to try and feel better about myself or go to psychologist or none of that. I just did those praxis and then it just wasn't there. I mean, not that I'm enlightened, but it got me over the first hurdle for Westerners at spiritual practice, like feeling, you know, this whole guilt, bad, low self-esteem. So that just purified through the power of that practice. It was like taking medicine for that and it just went away. It's like taking medicine for a headache and it's like, oh, it's not there anymore. It's like I just did these bowls for a certain amount of time and then it just wasn't there anymore. So for me, it was very inspired and it's like, wow, this stuff really works. When I realized it wasn't there. So I just, I kind of wanted to share that as maybe hopefully inspiration. So let me go back, share the screen again. Where are we here? Okay, share. Sorry. On current slide. Sorry, I'm not great sometimes. Okay, here we are. Good. Okay, so that's a little bit benefits of the water bowls. Next slide. So water bowl offerings. Yeah. So basically, just in a nutshell, does any of us here, let me see hands again, does any of us, probably some of us don't know how to do, I mean, I know you're doing them, Terry, yeah? Is that why your hand was going up? Are any of us not doing water bowls offering? I'm sure, yeah, San and Urs, you're not doing water bowl? Oh, Bo. Asha. So because, you know, really this practice is like, it's almost like a whole class, you know. So I would encourage you to read the notes, read the readings, because there are instructions in there. And even maybe somebody here might be able to help you a little bit. Are we having for this course, are we having like a discussion WhatsApp group? I don't know if that's organized or if it's possible, if it would help some people maybe to discuss a bit how to do the water bowls if people are interested.
Are you talking about like
Yeah,
an
we had a
online
discussion
on
group.
Zoom or just on WhatsApp?
I think we had a WhatsApp. What
We
did
do
we do
have
before?
WhatsApp
Oh, it was
group, but
online. Oh, we had a WhatsApp, yeah. Well,
yeah.
maybe we could just keep it up with the WhatsApp. If there's anybody who would like a wee bit more help on how to do water bowls, maybe someone else could support, you know, just because I can't cover that in the class tonight. And there is in the readings, but as you can see, you know, in the picture of this altar here, it is a really nice practice. The whole idea of these preliminary practices is, you know, as I mentioned before, our body's grosser, our speech is less gross, and then the mind is even more difficult to tame, you know? So the idea is when we get up in the morning, we do virtuous things with the body, you know, like get up and, you know, set our water bowls. And then we're going to see we do 3 prostrations, and then we sit down and we do, you know, go through the body. And that just helps to settle the speech and the mind, you know? So we do need to do that. And, you know, so it's like, that's why it's part of the preliminary practice. We need to start, as I mentioned, even as a monastic, most of my vows are around taming the body and the speech so that the mind will gradually get tamed, you know. So, because the mind's the hardest one to manage, you know. So we need to be, you know, that's why the non-virtues, killing, stealing, they're all heavier. So when we stop doing them, then it's easier to work on the speech, then gradually it's easier to work on the mind, you know. So the physical stuff it's really important, you know, because it helps to settle the mind. So water bowl, setting up the offerings, doing our water bowls, you know, and also it's a meditation where you know, you clean the bowl with a nice cloth, and then you do incense and you turn them upside down. So the whole practice itself, I mean, as I said, I did many, it's a whole meditation. Even if you don't have, I'll get to your question in a second, Ladan. Even if you don't have time, we did this, I mean, I did a ritual training course. So I know a few of you have heard this before, you probably recognize some of the slides. But you know, even if we don't have a lot of time in the morning, we can simply just go to our altar space and, you know, look at the holy objects, put our palms together, do the bowls, sit down and just do a few minutes of meditation, just connecting there and just allowing that to feed our mind for the day. We don't have to do everything elaborate. We do need to do something more elaborate sometimes. But, you know, if we're working and we're busy, just make that your practice. Tommy came to the ritual training as well. So you've had some of the training on the bowls. Are you doing any water bowl practice, Tommy? Did you manage to? Not yet, yeah. Not yet, we'll see. But, you know, this is why it's called preliminary. It's setting the mind for meditation. You know, we need to set the mind. Even when you do, like, I say yoga practice or other, there's a sort of setting of the, you know, you put your mat down, you get your things and your thing, and then you do some breathing to start with to set, you know, you build up, you know. So it's like, you know, as I say, His Holiness Lama Zopa Rinpoche, they all have massive altars. They all do these things, you know, they offer it. So, I mean, hello, you know. So we need these tools for our practice. It does, you know, even if you think, well, I'm not very ritualistic, or it's these are meditations, you know, you clean the bowl, you put it, it's all meditation. It's not just like, oh, you know, I'm not a ritual person, so I'm not doing it. It's a setting of the mind for meditation. Sometimes the 7 bowls can represent the 7 limbs. So we're going to go into the 7 limb prayer tonight. So again, it's like we offer the bowls so we can develop the 7 limb practice in our mind, you know. Generally, we do it every day if we can. Now, there's some days maybe you can't, you know, but mostly, as I say, your practice of coming to the altar, doing the bowls, and doing 3 prostrations that we'll get to next, and just sitting there and just looking at your altar and just like 2 minutes to develop your motivation. Maybe that's all you can manage, but that's okay, you know. You're edging into more practice that way. Ladan, you had a question?
Yeah, yes, my question was about when we had the session like 2 days. It was a weekend to know how
Yes.
to purify, how to set an altar and everything. I do my water bowl offering, but I cannot do the the incense. I cannot purify them. So
Oh, that's
can
right.
I just do it because uh, I'm not alone. My altar is in my room. So when I cannot burn incense. So I do it with light, like with the light. And
No, that's
thinking
fine. I
that
thought, well, I think the main thing is if you say Om Ahom.
yeah, my home is always, yeah.
Yeah, so that's good because that's the mantra that sort of cleanses and purifies obstacles, you know. So, yeah, of course you need to work within your boundaries and limitations. Yeah.
And another question was about like when we say we need to have purify, obscuration, and all the four. I was thinking about renunciation, bodhicitta, and emptiness. Where is the place of those in this, like in our altar? Like renunciation. Bodhicitta is I do it for all the sake of all sentient beings, but
Yeah. Well,
renunciation,
renunciation, when you're cleaning the bowls, you could think, may I be free of attachment,
attachment. Oh,
anger?
yeah, because you're giving. Yeah,
Yeah, no, also, so, you know, when you empty the bowls and you have to clean them with a cloth,
yeah,
you can think that, you know, may I in all beings be free of attachment. You
attachment.
know, that's one of the main obstacles to
Yeah.
developing renunciation. So you can bring that in there.
Mhm.
You know, I mean, one of the main things here that we're doing really is purifying and collecting merit, yeah? So once we do that, then when we sit down, we can, you know, it's creating this spaciousness, this area in our mind to meditate on these topics more deeply. But
Mhm.
it's true, even within the context of doing the bowls, as you're saying, like, when you don't have a lot of time, you know, you can also think, may I in all beings achieve renunciation, you know? May I in all beings develop a mind in non-attachment, you know, non-clinging.
And
May I in all beings
emptiness.
realize empty, you know, kind of understand or see impermanence. Does that
Mhm.
help?
Yeah, with flowers, emptiness. Yes, yes, of course. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you can sort of get creative within just like the small amount of time you've got, because the more we understand the Dharma, and it takes some time, you know, to create a little bit of how you think, you know, making your own prayers as well. Oh, especially when you just have a short time, you know. You can't work deeply on things, but you can make small aspirations and prayers as you just do the practice. Like
Mhm.
that, you know.
Mhm.
Does that make sense, Ladan?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
So yeah, a lot of the time, if you can have bowls, it's just a little bit introduction. If you can get bowls that don't go like really narrow at the top, it's better to have them wide. So it's kind of more, even for feng shui, they say it's better to have bowls that open out. It's like more generous, more kind of full, you know, the sense of fullness. And then keeping them clean and full, you know, that's the whole practice of water bowls is a meditation in itself. It really is, you know, not that you have to spend hours on it either, but you can do it in a few minutes, but just holding these awareness, these thoughts in your mind, you know, cleaning all beings karma, cleaning my own anger. What's coming up today? I'm really agitated. So you just clean that, you know, you clean the bowl and then you fill it up with like more joy and happiness, what you need for the day. Again, rather than thinking I have to sit there for 10 minutes and empty my mind. That's not what this is about at all, you know. It's not about emptying our mind. It's about cleaning the mind from negative emotion and then creating positivity in the mind by making offerings, merit. We need that environment. We need to build up that environment in our mind through these practices. So when we do meditate, it's like, wow, wow, wow. You know, when we sit down, there's more experience. Yes, Joe?
I have a possible alternative answer to Ladan's question.
Yes.
With offerings in general, so if it's, you know, food or things like that, gifts, I think, isn't it, the idea is that you give something that's really meaningful and precious to you, to the Buddhas, and then so in a way, that's, if you're giving something you really value away, then you're practicing non-attachment, and you're renouncing, you know, your kind of attachment to that special thing, like, you know, your favorite biscuits that you know that aren't going to come back to you. You're giving them away. So I know it's not the water bowls, but I'm thinking a bit wider and thinking that perhaps that's if you're, you know, if you're offering something, you're saying, well, yeah, you're practicing non-attachment, but by giving away something that you wouldn't normally, perhaps.
Yes, that's also, yeah, that's also true. Thank you, Joe. Yeah, I mean, it's just also, it's creating this limit generosity, which of course is working on attachment as well, you know, miserliness. That's one of the other benefits of offering bowls. It's creating this habit of generosity, even if it's something, you know, and also bowls, flowers, lights, anything. It's making our mind habitual with this practice of generosity, starting in a simple way with water bowls, but we can make it more extensive. So yeah, it develops that limit generosity, thanks, which it works with attachment, tightness in mind, clinginess, you know, that we want to open up our spirit of generosity more and more. So the other thing that we do, you know, so once we've set the altar, you know, we have our nice altar, however that is, we make some offerings, whether it's water bowl offerings and flowers, and you know, all these different offerings have different benefits, you know. When we offer incense, it has the benefit of practicing. Every time we offer incense, it's like it creates a cause or a seed for us to develop the scent of morality. When we offer light, of course, light is to illuminate our wisdom, you know, to have the illuminating wisdom of emptiness. I think flowers is for compassion, softness of mind, and also for morality, because it's a scent that we're offering. So all of these, and actually, you know, one of the commentaries, I think it's in Pabonka Rinpoche Liberation Palm, it says, if you make your altar very beautiful, it creates a cause for your bodhicitta, you know, that mind that really wants to get enlightened for all beings, to be really beautiful for others, you know. So your mind to become very beautiful for others. And we see that when we see really, really good-hearted people, or like even His Holiness, like His Holiness is how old? 89, 90, but he appears really beautiful to people. You know, he has a beauty. And I would say that about Lama Zopa Rinpoche for myself. You know, they have you know, obviously the aspect is an older male body, you know, but there's a beauty there it's beyond the body, you know, and we can see that in others as well. They may not be completely in line, but people with good heart, practice morality, there's a beauty there that coming for the mind, you know, the level of mind. So by making these offerings, that's what we're creating for ourselves, to have that inner beauty, morality, compassion, wisdom, you know, peacefulness, generosity. So all that's actually all happening in the context of just doing these basic practices. We're creating these seeds and imprints. Yes, Robin? You have a question, Robin?
Well, I noticed something. I put flowers in my altar downstairs, daffodils that were coming up in my front yard. And normally they last a little while, and they lasted a lot longer this week for some reason. I don't know why. But also, when I was meditating or just saying a gratitude or whatever, when I was in that room, sometimes they would just smell to me. It felt like the wind would come through and the smell of them would pass my nose. And then I would immediately just stop and feel immense amount of joy and gratitude for the flowers grow at all. You know,
Yeah.
it was really nice. And then the other thing I noticed this week was that sometimes if I'm sitting in front of water, the sound of the birds in my yard makes the water move. And it's just nice to see their voice in the water.
Mhm.
And I noticed those things because of this class. So I just wanted to share that and say
Okay,
thank you.
Thank you, Robin. Yeah, great. Well, the thing is, as I'm going into the next part of the practice, it's really true. You know, it's not, the Buddhas do exist, you know, enlightened mind does exist, you know, and so when we do these practices, what we're doing, they're just laid out in a way so that we start to feel a communication going on. It's not just me and oh, there's the universe and I'm just making these offerings and there's a Buddha statue and it's all kind of like separate still. They're communicating with us all the time. We need these practices to feel, and I think all of us feel that blessing sometime. We all feel it in some way at certain times. But I'll tell you, if you go into retreat, you know, if you ever have a chance to do retreat, we need to do these practices because you need to create a blessing and an environment and a protection so that then when you're doing retreat, your mind's just staying positive and wholesome. Doesn't mean that stuff doesn't come up, but there's an environment for you to work with it. So what also these practices can do, they can really bring stuff up. But because you're creating this wholesome environment in yourself, you're able to work with the stuff. It's like when you clean the clothes and the stuff comes out, right? So, but you can see it coming out and you're all like, okay, there's my anger there, okay. But there's a space, you've got a wee bit of space from it then rather than being completely stuck in it. So it creates a spacious, wholesome environment to enjoy your practice and also for stuff to come up, but we've got a healthy mind to deal with and work through it. So I'm saying here, this next slide is in connection with doing prostrations. It's like, again, it's another way to communicate with the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. You know, this is how we can communicate. Yangtze Rinpoche used this really good term during as I mentioned in the meditation at the beginning, he taught a Tara weekend here. And he said, you know, right now we're limited how we can the Buddhas can communicate with us. It's not that they're limited, we're limited. So all these practices are like create merit with the body, prostrating, sitting on a cushion and doing these prayers or doing offerings on the altar. It's opening up that space for communication and blessing that we need. So what prostration mudra, you know, why do we prostrate? So we set the altar, we put all the different offerings on the altar, whatever we can manage for the day. And again, maybe on the weekends, maybe during the week, you can only offer one water bowl and light one candle or put on some nice fairy lights or whatever, not do much, or light a sticky incense, whatever. But maybe you just put a wee bit more effort on the weekends or when you've got that time and you do all the bowls. You know, you put it out nicely, you clean a little bit the altar, you spend a bit of time, and then we do our 3 prostrations. Again, using our body to communicate and receive the blessing. We need to receive the blessing. We need that warmth of the blessing in our heart for the mind to move. So using our body to collect positive energy, merit, and virtue. So it doesn't actually mention it in the preliminary practices because it's already part of taking refuge and generating bodhicitta. When we did the previous module, you know, part of that, if we take refuge or we're moving in that direction, is to start opening up to this process of doing 3 prostrations in the morning. And again, if you can, in the evening, just connecting with our spiritual refuge, receiving that blessing and inspiration. So the word for, you know, the word for prostrating, or part of it, when we say I prostrate, they use this term shak selo, you know, and what that really means is you have something that I want, so please give it to me, you know, I'm requesting that from you. So again, we're trying to draw forth that kind of blessing and inspiration in our mind. And we're doing it by honoring a quality that we see in the Buddhas, the Bodhisattvas, our teachers, the Dharma. Wherever the qualities we see in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, we prostrate and we honor that by bowing down to it. And we see in all Buddhist temples, you know, certainly the Buddhist cultures, they all do that, you know. It takes us a while as Westerners. It takes a little bit of humbling, but it needs to be an honest humbling, you know, in ourselves, that we honestly feel like, oh gosh, there is some qualities there that I need to be humbled by in the presence of, and that I feel like, wow, I really want to develop them because I have Buddha nature. So again, even if you don't have much time in the morning, what you can do is just do this, put out whatever offerings you can, connect with your altar, do these 3 prostrations and just sit for a few minutes. That can be it, you know, and very short motivation. So again, prostrations, benefits of prostration mudra, there's many. like the water bowls, you know, when we put our palms together towards someone who's holy, you know, a teacher, an image of a teacher, an image of the Buddha, you know, we're communicating, and because we're not separate from the Buddhas, you know, whatever we're planting a seed in our mind to become like that when we do these practices. So it has we have the karma of a beautiful body. We create the karma, the benefit of being surrounded by people who benefit our spiritual practice, which is very, very important. You know, they don't need to be other Buddhists, but they need to be supportive of what we're doing. And as the Buddha said here, you know, a good companion is what we really need on the Eightfold Path, you know, on this path to enlightenment. So important. So there's a practice called the 35 Buddhas, which we're not going to do this time. We're just trying to aspire to do 3 in the morning and 3 at night prostrations. But that comes in module 14 when we cover the kind of preliminary practices in bigger numbers. But in the meantime, just trying to create this habit and feeling that benefit. I mean, I found that when I prostrated the first time, I found that experience quite mind-blowing. Kind of very liberating in a way, you know, because I'd never really done that in my life. So I was like, it was very liberating. I mean, prostrations along with water bowls, for me personally, those were the 2 most impactful practices for me in the beginning. And water bowls for many, many years. But the prostrations was the most impactful practice for me in the very beginning. Just doing that practice and really being connecting and being humbled, you know, and feeling like how powerful it is to bow down, you know, and at the same time, you know, having this mind of request. It's not bowing down because I'm bad. It's because I want to become like that. It's a different motivation, you know. So the other benefits of doing prostrations, you'll be able to live in morality. You will have devotion. You will have a brave mind. So this is the little super girl down there. That's supposed to kind of show that, you know. We will become courageous to practice Dharma, because you do need a lot of courage, perseverance to benefit others. Yes, Stan?
Yeah. Yes. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes. Can you describe or talk a little bit about the mechanics of the prostration? Ever since
Yes.
I took refuge, no one ever told me exactly how to prostrate. I saw people doing it, but I realized at some point that I don't know what I'm actually supposed to be doing. What I actually do is with my body, speech, and mind, and then I make the prostration, and I say that to myself. But I'm wondering what more you could say about the mechanics of actually making a prostration.
Yeah, so we're going to do that in the next couple. This is coming in the next couple of slides, Stan. Hopefully
Okay, I
that'll be
apologize for
answered.
always jumping ahead.
No, it's okay. Yeah. Because, you know, I can go in some of the mechanics and some of them not, just because the time-wise, but we will go in a little bit more how you do it. I've got 2 or 3 slides on that. Let's see if that answers a little bit. So the other benefits, you'll be born as a deva or human. You'll achieve the Arya path. You'll achieve enlightenment. I mean, it's really because you're honoring what you want to become. So that if we think about karma and everything's a dependent arising, again, you get into that a little bit more in the emptiness module, you know, how things really exist. But we exist dependent on each other. We affect each other. So when we prostrate towards, have any interaction with others, we're always creating karma, or seeds or imprints in the mind. So there's no question, because of the power of Buddha mind, omniscient mind, when we prostrate and we just think a moment about the qualities of the Buddha or the Dharma, something that inspires us, you know, where we want to go. There's no question it's creating something positive in our minds. It's no question. And because the Buddhas embody all these qualities, and we're prostrating to that, it's like that's creating that seed to slowly become like that, all those qualities. It's kind of common sense in a way, really, you know, when we think about it. It's just how karma works, you know. And again, the more powerful our conviction, our faith, our devotion, you know, that grows over time, but the stronger that is, the stronger the seeds we create. So it builds and it grows. Okay, so His Holiness, for example, the one about courage to practice is quite key, you know. And when we think about somebody like His Holiness, I just read recently that His Holiness said that, you know, he has so many problems with the Tibetan situation, right? 60 years, they're refugees, and even within Tibet, it's very, very difficult, you know, for the Tibetans there. But he says the more problems there are, the more difficult and complicated the work, the happier he feels. Which is, so His Holiness says he finds it beneficial to bear hardships. And he says that often the harder the work that is, the happier he feels. Now, when we think about that, us just dealing with one difficult person can be quite difficult, yeah? We get discouraged, you know? If there's some difficult situation with maybe the family or your work, or, you know, that we can often get discouraged, yeah? Or, you know, even just in our own practice. But His Holiness is like, no, if there's problems, they get happier. Not like they're happy because the people are suffering, but they have courage. There's a sense of courage and joy to do what they can in that situation. There's no sense of like, my mind's down, I'm blocked off, I can't deal with that, you know, like all the things that we get, right? So that's what we're prostrating to, that mind, you know. It's like we see all the politics in the world right now. It's very easy for the mind to go down, you know, feel like it's hopeless, scary. But for the Buddhas, it's like, what can we do to help, you know? And if they can't do anything, that's it, you know? So it's like, I try and remember that because I don't have that mind either, but like, what would that mind be like, you know? And some of us do have it more than others already, you know? So that one's I find that really amazing, you know, not being discouraged. And we can also get discouraged around other spiritual practitioners who we think they should be doing better than this, that, and the next thing, you know, or working at centers, we can get easily discouraged. So it's nice to feel like the Buddhas never get discouraged, you know, they just never do. Even if they feel like there's not much they can do to help, they don't go down. So Stan, yeah, so hopefully a little bit to answer your question, just the key points of the mudra here. So yeah, so what you do when you do the mudra is you have to put your palms together like this, you know, you see that mudra there. So this is namaste. As Lama Zopa Rinpoche would say, there's not, I mean, some people do prostrations like that, but in this tradition, we put like this, we keep the hands full. It's like not having empty, because in this, we're trying to develop bodhicitta. It's a very rich, it's a very rich mindset that kind of loves all beings, like His Holiness always wants to help, you know, very encouraged. So that takes a lot of merit, you know, so this goes together. And then the left hand signifies wisdom. So again, even in the morning, you can't do, so I'm going to probably in the practice day, I'll lead a simple meditation that you can do just in the morning around your altar if you can't do anything much else, you know, how you just start to embody these three prostrations, remembering the meaning of the left hand is wisdom. The right hand signifies our potential for bodhicitta, good heart, method. Absolute, you know, Rupakai, we might know, that's like an enjoyment body, a form body. Left hand is the wisdom body of the Buddha. So, but even if we just think, you know, wisdom and compassion, I'm putting those together. And I want to develop bodhicitta. You know, the two bodhicittas are really in there too. This signifies a jewel, these two. It's actually signifying the jewel of compassion. And then like we do one here, as you say, we prostrate here. We try and keep our hands up, you know, it's like the palms go up like that. Body, we go to the 4 points. This is purifying the body, or prostrating our body. Purifying the speech at the throat, purifying the mind at the heart, or receiving the blessings of the Buddha's body, speech, and mind. You know, and then when we do prostrate, so I can't show you here, but if you actually prostrate physically, like you go down on the floor, if you can do that, that's great. If you're not able to, you just do it on your cushion, you know. I know a lot of elder monastics, they can't prostrate anymore. So even the 35 Buddha practice, it's a whole prayer. They recite it every day, you know, and you visualize prostrating. But if you can, when you do just go down, keep your hands together, because there's a lot of benefit, there's a reason for that. There's many reasons for all of it, and then the main thing is when you prostrate, either short or long, be careful of your back. Be careful of your posture. You don't want to hurt yourself. You can either do so you go body, speech, mind, then you either go down on your knees and you always put your forehead to the floor, whether it's a short prostration on your knees or the long one where you sort of slide or walk along the floor, and then you go like this, you put your hands up and you go like that. And then you just come back again, and then you come all the way up, and then you do 1, 2, 3, and you go down again and come back up, and 1, 2, 3. It's a very liberating practice, prostrations. It really is. And it's very beautiful. You feel like, oh, wow, it's so nice. You go in the temple, everybody prostrates together. It's just so nice, to do that. It's like the whole thing can be a meditation. When we think about all the benefits, may I in all beings have devotion, may I in all beings have, morality. What moves you, you can think that when you prostrate. The 10 fingers can also signify, may I in all beings practice 10 virtues. No killing, stealing, lying. Again, this can just be that can alone just be your morning meditation. Just think that with the 3 prostrations. This is a really sweet. Now, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, he taught, why I wanted to include this in here, because Rinpoche taught many, many times on the benefits of just even putting your hands like that towards the holy objects. Even if, or just going like this, it's all these benefits. Rinpoche taught a lot, and he actually, when Rinpoche manifested the stroke, he wrote a letter to His Holiness, and he said he felt sad because he couldn't put his 2 palms together like that. Because of the stroke, his left side for some time, he couldn't actually do this. So I thought, well, that's a teaching for us, who are easy. That's easy for us to do. Sometimes we might not feel, oh, I'm all devoted and all that. That's okay. We just start where we are, just be gentle with yourself and try it out, Some of us, faith and devotion comes more easy than others. It's just our past life, but you just try it and say, okay, so how did that feel? How's that going? Try it for a while. Asha.
Yeah, Venerable. So I just searched on YouTube how to do the prostration. And so there was a short version and the long version. But like in the long version, when they lay completely on the floor, then they said like you stretch ahead, but then they said you do this, like up,
well,
down.
it depends what video you're watching, yeah.
Oh, okay.
There are different ways of doing it. So I would try and get an FPMT. Maybe I'll try and find one for you for next week. That's because there are different. It's not that one tradition's right or wrong. There's just it's not wrong doing that. And sometimes even in the Tibetan tradition, they do that. But Rinpoche had a slightly different style. So we try and promote Rinpoche's style of doing it. But yeah, there are people who go like that. And it's okay, so maybe I'll see if I can research one. There will be one where I can post it, give it to Bay to send to you for next week. Is that okay?
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
Yeah. So this is a sweet one, the cuddly toy that Rinpoche just put again, reminding us of what the prostration mudra, what it means, method and wisdom, crossing all beings into samsara. He's got all that in his left ear and his right ear, and it's very sweet, yeah, with a mantra. And so Rinpoche would give these away to people as gifts. And then Stan, also in terms, I don't know if you know the prostration mantra. So this is the mantra. When you go into a temple, when you wake up in the morning, you do prostrations. This is the mantra that we usually use. It's of course, Manjushri is the embodiment of wisdom, but he also embodies compassion. So this is the kind of, certainly in this lineage of teachings and in the FPMT, this is the one that Lama Yeshe and Lama Zopa Rinpoche asked us to use as the 3 preliminary. And actually, when you do this mantra and then you do other prostrations, it multiplies the effect of the other prostrations. So that's why they use it. So that's the mantra that we use there, and I've got what it means in the next page. I see that you're writing it down, Stan, so I'll just leave you to write it down. And then the next one is, so it's good to memorize that. The other thing I was going to ask is, if it's helpful for everyone, I could make a recording of how you chant the mantra. I think some of you, Tommy and Terry, you'll have the recordings from the retreat, but some of you may not have that. So I'm just curious, maybe put your hand up. If it's helpful for you, I can send you recordings of how you do this. You know, there's a nice tune that goes to it, and you can listen and then slowly you memorize, as well as some of the other prayers, like the refuge prayer, because it is inspiring to chant, you know. I mean, some of us might feel like, oh my God, I'm useless, I can't do it. But I mean, I was terrible when I first started chanting. I was like high and out of tune, and it just, you know, you just practice like anything, you know. I said that during the ritual training retreat. And the more you start to feel a connection with the prayers, the teachings, your altar, it just starts to, you know, fit together. As I say, I just always use this example of yoga or qigong or something. You know, everything, when you're driving, everything feels odd, you know, and then slowly, all of a sudden, it's just all shifting and moving together, you know. So it's like this with the practices. We just need to have a regularity with them. And Terry, I know you've been doing them for a while now. So what's your experience been? I mean, I'm sure you were sharing that you're feeling that, yeah?
Oh, absolutely. It's exactly what you shared about the water bowls. I'm doing this over here, which is all the practices, as I'm observing in meditation how my life is getting different. It's really, really, truly amazing. I am so situated that I devote a lot of time in the morning. Usually about an hour to my practice, but I get up early in the morning to be able to do that because it's important and it's worth it for me to do that.
Yeah.
Evening practice is a little bit more of a struggle.
I think we all struggle a bit at night, but some of us might do better in the evening. I've one nun friend, she does more at night. She's a night person. It doesn't mean you should probably tune in anyway in the morning, but some of us might be better at night. That's okay. You know, if you can only do once a day, you do the morning or the evening, whatever, or maybe it's the afternoon. You know, maybe it's your lunch break because you've got a long lunch break. Who knows, you know, but it's you finding the space, yeah. So I will so next week I have to get a prostration video, or I'll make one for myself. And then I'll chant some of the chants of these praxis that we're going to go through, so you have them as well, because that's how I learned. You listen to others, and we've got all the devices now. I mean, in Tibet, they never had any of these recording devices. I don't know how they memorized all these chants, you know, but they did somehow. I mean, they memorized everything at that time, you know. So I'll just put those together, and again, I'll send everything to Bay, and Bay can just send out to everyone, whoever can use them. Because you do need that in the beginning. You need all these things in the beginning. You just start with one. I'm just going to learn this prostration mantra for the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever. Then I'll move on to the refuge prayer for the next how long. It just is making it manageable. This is the meaning of that mantra. So it's not, because Manjushri is the embodiment of wisdom, and then we're prostrating to the goodness of the Buddhas. That's like their good, you know, all the goodness that's embodied in the good heart. And then the sublimity that comes from that incredible goodness and wisdom, you know, it's just a sublime state of being. So may that and ripen in me and all beings. You know, just think about that when we prostrate. You can just, very simple, you know, very beautiful aspirations. And like all the mantras, you know, whatever mantra we're doing, it's like somehow it's set up so the whole path to enlightenment, whether it's Tara, Chenrezig, Medicine Buddha, Shakyamuni Buddha, it's like it includes the whole path in there. There's something that's blending in our mental continuum when we chant these mantras that embodies the whole path. You know, it's creating these seeds to develop the whole path in our mind. So when you can, yeah, simple, when to recite these prostrations. So in the morning, when we get up, that's a refuge commitment, and or in the before teachings, you know, and in the evening, anytime, I mean, anytime, even anytime, if you can, you know, if it feels, I mean, sometimes it feels a bit odd, but, you know, I try and create the habit every time I see, I mean, I'm at Vajrapani, we have lots of holy objects. We have stupas and prayer wheels and, you know, images. So I try always to, because there's so many benefits of just doing this, I try to be, that's the, in this, and for Rinpoche, the mindfulness is not your breath or your walking. It's being aware when you see holy objects, when you see a being, maybe a Sangha member putting your, it's like it's so much merit, you know, much more than watching your breath or doing walking meditation, just watching your feet, you know, because you're creating that communication, you're opening up that possibility for faith and devotion and that mind to ripen in you every time you do that, you know. Even if it feels a bit odd sometimes, slowly it starts to become more natural as you open up that heart. It's opening up your heart chakra, you know, that's where you want everything to happen in there. So it's like you're just exercising that, you're opening that up, you're activating it when you do this prostration mudra. So that's a really good habit to develop, you know, like preliminary, basic habit. Lama Zopa Rinpoche, you know, when Rinpoche was at airports, I mean, this is my, you know, we go to airports to meet Rinpoche's teachers. I went a few times. Rinpoche would prostrate in the airport on the floor when his teachers arrived. I mean, I don't have that kind of courage, you know, I might go like this. But Rinpoche would go like this, and you know, it was amazing, you know, unbelievable to see. But you know, that's a special being. We can't do that. But it was just showing like for Rinpoche how important that practice was. And even there's a couple of videos of Rinpoche prostrating when he had after the stroke. He would take to do 3 prostrations, you know, the long one going down and up. Because every time Rinpoche came into the Gompa, he would always do 3 prostrations. So even when he had the stroke, it was unbelievable how difficult it looked. And Rinpoche would do 3 prostrations going up and down. So slow. And then even that you could see the right side, it was really difficult. But Rinpoche would, you know, I mean, he's already an enlightened being and he's still doing all this, you know. So it was quite incredible for us students to watch that. What we see is something preliminary. Rinpoche would like make sure that was done, you know, even though he'd had a stroke, even though it took him a long time. So it's kind of, for me, it was like, this is why it's like, these are not like, it's called a preliminary practice, but it's so fundamental within the development of our practice to develop these things, you know, it's really a fundamental thing and it's rich within itself. Okay, so the next thing that we do, you know, when we sitting in meditation posture. So we did go over that in the how to meditate, the Vairochana posture. So you do have the readings for that. So I'm not going to go into the posture. Generating the minds of refuge and bodhicitta. So I usually put this together. For me, I usually put it together with the merit field, the next one that comes along. So we've done quite a few meditation. And again, we'll do in the practice day, just using, you know, a short way of connecting in the morning and using that posture to even bring about refuge and bodhicitta when we don't have a lot of time. I'll cover that in the practice day. But yeah, that's important to get your body in the right place, you know, to settle for meditation. Now that we've done the external sort of activities again with our body, getting the body in that environment of meditation, then we sit down and it's even a little bit more clearer and ready. So I've put this together. This is the 4th point, invoking the merit field. So I do want to bring up a point that Kate touched on in the practice day. I mean, sometimes, you know, who's Shakyamuni, you know, as Kate said, isn't it, Kate? You said, you know, I don't, and you know, it's hard to feel like who's Shakyamuni Buddha. I didn't meet him, you know. We do feel like that sometimes. So it reminded me later of a story. In the early days, somebody shared with me when it was actually Lama Zopa Rinpoche mentioned this a few times in teachings. When he and Lama started teaching in the very early days in the 70s and 80s, I mean, everybody was the same, you know. We know what we hear about Shakyamuni Buddha, then we have all these deities, who are all they. And so I think they had been invited to go to a place, maybe it was Australia or New Zealand, somewhere like that. And one of the people who was organising the event was having some time with Lama Yeshe, you know, and he said to Lama Yeshe, well, I don't know who Chenrezig is, because Lama was giving a Chenrezig, that's the Buddha of compassion, Avalokiteshvara. He was giving that initiation. And he said to Lama Yeshe, well, I don't know who Chenrezig is, but I know you. So, well, and actually Lama Zopa Rinpoche thought that was great, you know, he loved that. So that was his way connecting with who he thought Chenrezig was. Well, he thought Lama was like a very compassionate being. So that's who he felt. That's how he connected with the deity, you know. And so even another student, you know, I was reading over some of the teaching materials, and one of the older students, Kendall, who put some of this program together, she was saying as well, you know, she was sharing that, you know, in the early days, it is hard to relate to Shakyamuni Buddha. I mean, we need to put a wee bit of effort. We need to read their life story, contemplate that, what parts of his life inspire us, you know, and then also there's the teachers that we meet, even if it's just no, not just, but maybe it's Sangha at this level, you know. Maybe there's certain parts of their life or their story or how they teach that inspire me right now. That's how you slowly start to connect, you know. And the other thing, you know, so that's how I connected, you know, through listening to Western Sangha. I didn't connect with Lama Zopa Rinpoche right away. I connected through teachings with Western Sangha, through hearing about the story of Buddha, feeling inspired by some of that, then just meditating on the Lam Rim, purifying a little bit, and slowly I was able to sort of meet and have an experience of Rinpoche being my teacher, but it took time, you know. So so in the meantime, we just focus on, well, what aspect of Shakyamuni when we in terms of invoking the merit field, you know. So some of us already might feel quite solid with Shakyamuni Buddha as being our spiritual guide, you know. Then we might feel like, I feel like his qualities are embodied in his holiness. So you can sort of think about his holiness being the Buddha, or you can think about, maybe you think about the Sangha inspiring you more, of the Dharma. So you think about the Buddha being the texts, you know, all the texts that you're reading, the Heart Sutra, you know, the Lam Rim, that's what the Buddha taught. That's his holy speech, you know. So that's what I feel inspired about the Buddha. So you kind of have to make it your own within the context of the material, you know, the materials you're given. What part is inspiring you right now? In the early days, as well, within a few years, Lama Zopa Rinpoche gave me this more extensive practice to do with Lama Tsongkhapa called Lama Chopa, Guru Puja. We know that one, yeah? We know that one. Now here is, let me see, let me just fast forward. I think I was going to say this in another. Here's the, I'll have to go back and forward again, sorry. This is the merit field for, you know, this is how we're supposed to visualize that picture in the bottom. It's very, I mean, you know, I was like, whoa, that's not one Buddha. So this is like many, and I was like, oh my gosh, how am I going to do that, you know? And there's no way I could visualize that. So I just used to think about Lama Zopa being Lama Tsongkhapa. You know, that worked for me. Because even in, you know, in Lama Tsongkhapa, it took me a long time to have a feeling for who is Lama Tsongkhapa. You know, I think it really developed for me when I read his biography. Thupten Jinpa, who was the incredible translator for His Holiness the Dalai Lama for many, many years, and very bright, very intelligent, very gifted, you know, and he teaches the Dharma now as well. And he put together a biography for us Westerners of Lama Tsongkhapa. And when I read that, I really got inspired by Lama Tsongkhapa. But up until then, I just heard a few things here and there. So for me, Lama Zopa was Lama Tsongkhapa. You know, when I thought about this, I just thought, well, that's Lama Tsongkhapa for me right now. And he still is. Lama Zopa is still. And one of the practices is, when we go into maybe the teachings on the spiritual teacher, a big part of this is feeling that the Buddha and your teacher are inseparable. There's an inseparability there, or like your teacher is an agent for the Buddhas, because it's only through your teacher that the Buddha's teachings really come to life, yeah? I mean, we could read and read and read, but it might just stay at the dry level. But when you have a teacher who embodies even some of those qualities, that's when the teachings come to life for you, you know. So it's quite important at some point as we develop to see this inseparability. Or even when you visualize the Buddha, you can think, well, it's kind of His Holiness, and you can go back and forward with that, you know, feeling, and that's when it really brings everything to life, that meditation. Any questions or comments with that? You've seen all my slides now. I'll go back again.
I just want to say thank you for thinking about it and explaining it this way a few times. It does make sense to me the way you're explaining it, and I'm sure it does for other people, but I really appreciate the effort you're taking to really go into depth about it. Thank you.
Yeah, and it's Kate, we all meet, this happens with all of us, you know. It's just I have to kind of backtrack and go, oh yeah, when did that happen for me? You know, when was I having that thing? Because we all go through similar bumps and obstacles and blocks, and then you know, that's sort of a constant, but we can always move through them. There's different ways to think, you know, where we have to move through them. Stan?
Yes. In this refuge, sorry, I take refuge until I am enlightened phrase. That almost makes me think that I have taken refuge for the duration of my journey, from lifetime to lifetime, because I'm not enlightened in this lifetime, so my refuge is still in play. I mean, my heart is still in, I vowed to take this refuge. So, but when I'm born again, I have to take it again because I have a new body and my mind is in a new place. And is that just a reminder, or that I vow to take this refuge until I am enlightened is really at face value, that I'm there for the duration, you know? I wonder what you could say about that.
Well, I think there's two aspects to it, Stan. If I'm answering your question correctly, let me know. But yeah, I think the thing is, if we think, you know, and again, these are all meditations, I take refuge in the Buddha's quality of mind, you know, and my potential for that until I'm enlightened. So every time you think about that more deeply, that's creating these seeds and imprints to meet the teachings again. It's more like that. Because, you know, to get enlightened in this life, well, I hope you have that karma. But we know it's a huge job, yeah?
Of
So
course.
it's kind of the prayer set up, it's kind of set up, it's a blessed in a way. So every time we recite it and we think about it, because Lama Zopa Rinpoche used to say, we're not parrots, we're not supposed to go, Sangye Chodan, Sangye Chodan. No, that's not the idea. We do need to think about it, you know? So whether you do it in Tibetan or English, it doesn't really matter. It's more about thinking about it. So I think what that does, unless we go to a pure land where we meet the teachings there, yes, if you are reborn again as a human, that's one of the benefits is saying these prayers, of taking refuge every day. It creates the cause for you to meet the Dharma again, to have a precious human life. I think when we did the refuge module, there was these benefits of taking refuge, eh? And one of them is like, we'll continue to meet the teachings. So from your heart, if you have that experience of refuge, you know, really from your heart, feeling what that prayer says there, you know, then I think no problem, you're going to meet the teachings in future lives, you know, one after the other.
Right.
Especially if you start taking bodhisattva tantric vows and you keep them purely. I mean, there won't be a lot of gaps. There'll be less and less gaps. So it's like you say that because it's creating an imprint and seed for you to meet again. And that's what you need to get enlightened. You need to meet this refuge for a few lifetimes, you know. Does that help answer your question?
Absolutely. Clarifies immensely.
Okay. Robin?
Yeah, I started reading the King of Prayers out loud when we got the email about Venerable Ingrid.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, I just felt like I only met her briefly at that event, but she was just very kind to me in a sweet way. And it just, I don't know, just touched me. And then I lost a friend this week. So I had a question specifically about that, which
Yes.
is, should I read it twice? I've been reading it in the morning and the evening and thinking of them both at the same time. Is that okay?
Oh, I mean, you can, of course, yeah, you can think as many people as you want when you do a prayer.
Okay.
I mean,
Okay.
of course, to do it twice is beautiful and wonderful, you know, but you can also do it once and dedicate for both of them, or do it twice, or
Okay.
however you feel. But you can definitely dedicate for as many. We do pujas here. We dedicate for whole prayer lists, you know.
Yeah.
Even when I do the puja for Ingrid, I mean, of course, I try, if other people need, I dedicate for them too, you know.
Yeah.
So
I made a request for the prayers for my friend. And dedicated them to my friend. The other question I had was when I was at the event, I bought the Sutra of Golden Light and I've been reading that aloud.
oh, wow.
Sometimes I stumble over the words in it, the names, especially the really long ones.
Yeah.
But I'm reading them just like as best as I can. And
Yeah.
what I found was helping with the King of Prayers and with this book, which is I guess also just like a giant prayer, but was to say it. I'm autistic, so I tend to move. So I say it like in a meter, like a rhythm. Is that okay?
Of course, I think it
Okay.
makes it more Yeah, you have to do it. Well, I do that as well. Sometimes I create a little tune for myself, you know? Because
It's
some
hard
of
to
these
read out
prayers,
loud without constantly drinking water, so I'm trying to get good at saying things out loud without needing to constantly stop or get up to go to the
okay.
bathroom, things like that.
Anyway, thank you for doing the prayers for Venerable Ingrid, and thank you for reciting the Sutra Golden Light, because they're very powerful. Both of these are very powerful, you know, so it's wonderful. Yeah, I'm really
I just
rejoiced that
found
you're
them and
doing
they
that.
just they resonated with me, so
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
helpful. Okay, thank
wonderful.
you. I
Yeah,
just
yeah,
want to do it right.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, sometimes there are some prayers like the Sangha, you know, they have specific tunes, but with these two, it's just you can just sit and make a little chant to yourself if that works. You know, if it's more inspiring for you that way. Yeah, definitely. So, so yes, so the next practice is we do the refuge and bodhicitta, because again, there's so many benefits that we mentioned in the previous module and that I touched on with Stan here about doing that refuge prayer. And again, a little bit meditation. So even Lama Zopa at the beginning of teaching would often stop, not just reading the prayers and then starting to teach, but he would stop and have us meditate a little bit on Sangye, you know, what it means, you know. Maybe pointing out one part of the prayer, what it means, you know, and just reflecting on that so it goes down, you know, slowly, slowly going down into the heart. Okay, is anything else? Just checking anything else? Okay, that's good. So then the four immeasurable. This isn't part necessarily, but you will see in a lot of the prayers that we have these four immeasurable prayers. So again, this again a lot in its own, it's a very beautiful practice, the four immeasurables. For a long time, I would do the measurable, recite these and chant Om Mani Padme Hum. I haven't done it so much recently because sometimes we move, you know, over the years in this tradition, you develop a lot of commitment. So, and sometimes you do one practice for a while and then you do another one, and that can happen, you know, which is fine. But the point of the four immeasurables, even if we just read, sometimes there's a shorter version of them, like may all beings have happiness and the cause of happiness. May all beings be free from suffering. It's just one line, which you can also use, and you find that in the prayer books as well. But the point of these is just touching and strengthening our bodhicitta. For us to develop this like vast mind, this courageous mind of bodhicitta, like His Holiness, you know, not getting discouraged with suffering and problem, having so much patience and kindness and generosity, and having the skill, the wisdom, the skillful wisdom to benefit others. To have all that, we need this basis of the four immeasurables. It's like the groundwork for that mind, that bigger mind, vast mind of bodhicitta. So again, if you can, you don't have to do these, but again, sometimes you'll find in the prayers, it's just the short version, may all beings have happiness, and just spending a moment in each of those. I've also found, as you've seen, sometimes when I share the meditations together, I also sometimes include, may I and all beings have happiness. May I and all beings abide in equanimity. May I and all beings, you know, have happiness and the causes of happiness or achieve Buddhahood. Because again, for us Westerners, sometimes we need to feel deeply that we wish that for ourselves first, you know, that self-compassion. And then it's like healthy to wish it for others. You know, we're not ignoring or avoiding ourselves. We're embracing ourselves in the practice and our need to have that quality of mind before we can really benefit others, you know. So just these four immeasurables can be part of developing it as well. And there is a link in the resources, as I believe, on the four immeasurables and Rinpoche's teaching on that. But at some point, I might teach, you know, it might do a class just on the four immeasurables because it's quite rich within itself. It could be a whole retreat almost just on the four immeasurables, you know, how you do that. But just in a nutshell here, for those of us who may be interested, so that's the first two, and then here's the second two here. Immeasurable compassion, wishing others to be free from suffering and the cause, wishing others to have never be separated from high rebirth and liberation. But when I go back to this one, so the four, what we're doing here in the four immeasurables. So the first line, how wonderful it would be if all sentient beings were to abide in equanimity, free from the closeness of attachment and hatred. So when we say how wonderful, what you're creating here is a measurable wish. It's like on the level of just wishing that for yourself and others. It's like before you really do something, you have to generate the wish, yeah? Like, oh, that would be nice, you know? That's kind of where everything starts. Everyone's on the tip of a wish kind of thing. I think that's the expression you use. So we wish that for ourselves and others. That's kind of how they work. Start with a wish. And then the next one is, may they abide, may I and all beings actually abide in equanimity. So that's an immeasurable prayer. That's, may I have happiness, may all beings have happiness. It's like, that's getting into the level of praying for that, not just thinking that would be nice. So it's a bit deeper, you know. Then the third line, I myself will cause them. That's starting to take on what we call this bodhicitta thought, you know, taking on a sense of responsibility. Like, well, I'm going to, you know, once I get equanimity, I want to be able to help others to develop that beautiful mind equanimity. So that's almost like, I think may they abide is almost like when we take bodhisattva vows, it's like the aspiring bodhisattva vow. And I myself is almost like the engaging bodhisattva vow. When you take it and say, I'm going to do that. I'm going to develop my mind so I can do that. And then please Guru Deity, then we need the blessing. Help me. Like, just like when we put a prostrate, you've got what I want. May I have that, please? May that be rooted in my heart. You know, that quality and that ability to be able to benefit others in that way. And that's how the 4 immeasurables is set out there. But again, short of time, you know, we could just do how wonderful it would be if I know all beings, at the, just keeping it at the level of a wish, you know, that's also opening our heart. Or we could say just may I know all beings, you know, making that prayer. We can just do it very simple, these 4 immeasurables like that as well, depending on our time. And again, this is the place. So yes, so that's the 4 immeasurables. Then next prayer is the 7 limb prayer. And again, just to mention, you know, we have Shakyamuni Buddha. This is, we could say this is in connection with Shakyamuni Buddha practice. That's the one they use for this module. But you can also do it with, if you do a practice with compassion, you'll see the same prayers with the Buddha compassion. If you do a Tara practice, some of you have joined me for Tara Puja. Some of you join me for Medicine Buddha Puja practice. It's the same prayers. You know, even at the level of High Yoga Tantra, you have 7 limb prayer. You know, Kriya Tantra is 7 limb prayer. These are constant, you know, it doesn't matter what level, whether you're a beginner, whether you're more developed. As Lama Zopa Rinpoche says, this is the practice for achieving realizations and enlightenment. And it's all the way through the bodhisattva levels. When you even get very highly developed in your bodhicitta, they still do the 7 limb offering. And I'm glad you mentioned that prayer, Robin, because you'll remember in the King of Prayers, there's a more extensive 7 limb offering at the beginning. It's whole verse on 1 or 2 verses on prostrating, on 2 or 3 verses on offering. So if you actually check the first maybe 15 to 20 verses is actually the 7 limb. That prayer starts with an extensive 7 limb. You'll notice it now when you go back, you know, you prostrate, you offer. So that's in there. And that's a very profound prayer, actually, you know, but very beautifully written, very profound. So this isn't like, oh, it's just me, I'm doing this as a beginner. No, this is like, we need to know these fundamentals, because they're in all the practices, you know. So you can just shift around and it's there all the time. You know how to practice them. So 7 limb prayer. So we already did prostrate, I prostrate. So again, prostrate. So what's the main antidote prostration is? What's the main delusion it's the antidote to? Ladan, you should probably know this. Terry. What does it purify mostly? It purifies many things, but when we think about it, what's our main obstacle to prostrating?
Prostrating, it's the antidote to the crowd.
Yes, thank you. It's actually the main antidote is to pride, purifying our pride. There's actually 7 types of pride. Don't ask me to list them all off, but in this tradition, and one of them actually is a little bit, as I heard it for one teacher, low self-esteem is a kind of pride, a little bit. It's definitely a self-focused mind. Bay, am I right? Bay, you've done all these DB classes. 7 types of pride. You've done more, I think, more philosophy than I have. Urs and Bay.
I don't
Isn't there
know
7 types of pride? You remember that?
the 7 types, but I can look up.
No, it's okay. But you've heard there's about 6 or 7 types of pride, yeah? Have you heard that? Yeah? No? Maybe? Yours? Yeah, I think when I did mine, no?
No, I haven't heard it.
Yeah, I think when I did Mind and Mental Factors with Venerable George, I was like, wow, 7 types of pride, you know? So, but as I say, it was many years ago. I don't remember them all. But anyway, but yeah, so generally speaking, you know, if we do it with the right mind, it's purifying a sort of pride. Or the other thing that Lama Yeshe said, it creates space. If this works better for you, it creates space in your mind for wisdom. That's a nice way to put it. So prostrating that. So even when you do this prayer, you can put your palms together and do this just as simple, you know, prostrating to the Buddhas and all their incredible wisdom and all their qualities. I present clouds of every type of offering. So you saw this picture already. So Lama Zopa Rinpoche, this is Rinpoche once, when I was at the house as well, Lama Zopa Rinpoche used to buy many, many flowers for the garden because there were offerings. I worked in the garden, so we had a lot of flowers to take care of. And this was Rinpoche's, now, of course, Rinpoche did extensive prayers, extensive offerings. It was for all sentient beings. It wasn't just to look nice. It was actually a whole offering that Rinpoche made. And actually Venerable Ingrid, the nun that I was sharing with, mentioned why I was not here last week is because Venerable Ingrid, one of our senior nuns, she passed away, and she was famous for making incredible flower offerings at the teachings. I mean, unbelievable. She had this art. She was an artist. She studied art before she met Buddhism. So she had a natural creativity and just this natural ability. I don't think she studied flower arranging, but she was like, she made an incredible, I mean, breathtaking flower arrangements. She would spend hours making flower arrangements for teachings around His Holiness and Lama Zopa Rinpoche. She was famous for that. But anyway, Lama Zopa Rinpoche made the comment one time, we need to make offerings all the way up to enlightenment. And as Joe said, it's for purifying attachment, it's for developing this limit generosity. And it's not that the Buddhas need flowers, the gurus need flowers. It's like, it's a way, every time we make these different offerings, it's creating these karmas in our mind to have their qualities. You know, we're making offerings toward that incredible quality. So many benefits of making offerings. So here we make offerings. So we just try and imagine, you know, whatever we've got on our altar, we offer that. And then we try and visualize, like in the image here with Rinpoche, many flowers, many lights, many water bowls. We try and just fill the sky, make it as beautiful and extensive as possible. So offering purifies is as antidote to miserliness, attachment. I confess all my negative actions. Confession. That's an antidote to negative karma when we confess something. So again, some of us have come from maybe Catholic tradition where there's the practice of confession. So just in the, you know, again, it's valid, you know, like if you sincerely regret and sort of express that, you know, to someone else who has some power to receive that and hear that, you know, then it does purify, you know, it does purify. So it's, I don't know how it still works in the Catholic tradition, but it's from the, and I think definitely it's there, you know, in this tradition, it's confessing, admitting, having a sense of regret for things that you did that harmed yourself. Because ultimately, karmic wise, if we harm others, that karma is going to bounce back. Yeah. So if we regret and confess, purify it, then we won't receive the result. You know, we just won't, you know, we'll have purified it. So even in the Catholic tradition, there's a reason for that, because confession can purify. If we really feel a sense of regret, we do some purification, then we can not experience the result. You know, it has a power to purify. Rejoicing in the virtues. So again, in terms of confession, there's also a whole practice called Vajrasattva purification practice, where we use these 4 powers, and one of them is kind of like regretting, using the power of regret to purify actions that we've done to harm ourselves and others. So it's kind of stemming, this limb here is stemming from that. So feeling regret, feeling a sense of, you know, you're sorry, you know, and but not beating yourself up. But it's like they say it's like taking poison, doing actions that are just going to bounce back to you in the future. You don't want that, you know. So you confess, you open up and admit, and that has a power to purify. Rejoicing in the virtues, how wonderful it is. So this is this practice. For us, I think now there's 3 ways to rejoice. Rejoicing in your own virtue. How wonderful it is. I'm a relatively good person. I do have stuff, but I'm patient a lot of the time. I can be kind in situations, not all the time, but you know, just that sense of friendliness. Rejoicing creates a sense of friendliness with ourselves. A sense of feeling good about our good stuff. If we feel good about our good stuff, we can feel balanced and okay, not okay, but we can then have a space to be truthful about our not so good stuff. But within the environment of feeling beating ourselves up about our even good stuff, and then and then definitely not even feeling worse about our bad stuff, it's very hard to have an environment for spiritual development. So it's kind of that one. It's like for a Westerners, rejoicing in the virtues of myself, of ordinary beings, and of all the holy beings. There's 3 ways you can rejoice there. So it's that there's 3 practices within that. So I think for us in the beginning, we should do all of them, but feeling like how Rinpoche used to say a mantra, how wonderful it is that I've created this precious human life for myself. How wonderful it is, you know, whatever you feel good, you know, I was patient today with that person. How wonderful it is. Generally, I'm a patient person, but I still have to work on my anger. You know, how wonderful it is that I've met these Dharma teachings and I go every week and I'm really trying to do the Lam Rim, even though it's really difficult or whatever, you know, it's just, we need to develop that, feel that joyfulness about ourselves every day in some aspect of your life. I think every morning. What do you think? I think it's important because if you don't, you won't go back to your cushion. If you're just sitting there beating yourself up, you're not going to want to go back there, you know, so Lama Zopa Rinpoche during pujas and practices with Westerners, because often the Tibetans, they just run through practices, you know. But with Westerners, Rinpoche would sit and he would have us rejoice for a while. Ourselves first, then all the ordinary beings, and then all the Aryas and all the... Do we know what's an ordinary being? I think I've asked this before, but just checking up. Anyone want to put their hand up? Let me see. I'm not going through everyone. Anyone? Ordinary being. Stan, what's an ordinary being?
I do not know.
Oh.
I assume it's others like myself who are on the path and haven't achieved such progress at some point.
An ordinary being is someone who's not had a direct perception of emptiness.
Right.
To just be a wee bit more specific, it's someone who's not an Arya being. An Arya's had a direct perception of the nature of reality, and an ordinary being who's still, basically, she says, still in samsara, and even more specifically, someone who's not had that perception of, direct perception of emptiness yet, you know. But still, we rejoice because ordinary, there's so many beings who have so much virtue and goodness, you know, bodhisattvas. Us, you know, we're taking vows, we're practicing morality, we're doing practices, so, but not rejoicing to the point where, okay, I've done all this, good enough. And we're not quite that, you know. It's just like, I've done all this and let's do more, you know, or let's just keep going, you know, even so. So it's more like that, you know, not just rejoicing and I think I've done enough, but it's creating that momentum to keep doing more. That joy, you know, because joyous effort is one of the 6 perfections of a bodhisattva, finding a joy in our practice. So we need to start with the joy, finding our own joy about ourselves. Please remain until the end of cyclic existence. So this is always important to ask the gurus to always, it's like asking the teachers. So we would do, it's like almost like a long life puja. Here you can visualize if you want to. We think about it. So now these days there's many pujas done, long life pujas done for the Dalai Lama. You know, and this comes into a little bit your question on Stan about requesting. You were requesting them to remain, sometimes it's, the translation is please remain until samsara ends, or, you know, it's like kind of requesting the gurus always to be here, the beings who really embody the teachings, you know. Of course, the Buddha does here, but you're also thinking about your teachers. So that's important, because at the level of, I would say, His Holiness, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, these high beings, they don't need to be here. They wouldn't say that. But, you know, from our view, it's like they're very evolved, you know, they have all these realizations. So they can pass away at any time. You know, they have that ability. So that's where request comes in really strongly, you know, because supposedly at the time of the Buddha said to Ananda, his close disciple, that he could live as long as he likes. But somehow Ananda didn't catch that he needed to ask the Buddha to live long. So it's said that it was one of Ananda's greatest causes of grief, because after the Buddha manifested passing away, some people blamed Ananda because they heard that the Buddha had hinted a few times to Ananda that he could live long, and that Ananda didn't ask him to stay. So there's something in that power of request, you know, it's like you know, it's like you're asking a special being. It's like just inviting someone special to come to your house. I mean, if there's someone really special visiting the area, I mean, you need to make an invitation if there's royalty, or, you know, even for the centres, we need to request the teachers to come. We write letters, we include the 7-limb offering, that's what it's called. We write nice letters and we request them, because they don't phone us up and say, I think I'll come and teach, you know. We have to show that we want that. We have to show we have an appetite for that. So it's a little bit like this with the Buddhas. I mean, they can pass away at any time, some of these high-level beings, so we need to actively ask them to come and teach, like we are doing now with Lama Zopa Rinpoche. There's many, many prayers that the students are reciting for Rinpoche to come back again, you know. For His Holiness the Dalai Lama, they're doing a lot, you know, that His Holiness isn't teaching a lot now, but what he will attend is long life pujas. So many thousands of students come together and offer a ceremony requesting the Dalai Lama to live long, you know. Because if it doesn't look like we're interested in them living long, then there's no need for them to be here. So this is what request in a way means. It's like showing you have an appetite. You want that, you know, you want that in your heart. You want either in the level of making a request during a practice, or making a request in front of a teacher, you know, could you please come and teach this text or this or that, because we want that, you know. So that your mind's open to that. So there's more, if they just turn up and teach something, it's like, well, I don't know if I really want that, you know. So there's something going on there with our ability to receive that teaching even more deeply. There's a power in requesting. So even at the level of doing our daily practice, requesting the Buddha to bless our mind, requesting the Buddha with realizations, that's showing us, yeah, I really want that, you know. Yes, Asha?
Yeah, Venerable. So I understand from the viewpoint of the ordinary beings why we would want the holy beings to remain until the end of the cyclic existence. But what if they have done their due diligence over these limitless lifetimes and they are ready for, final, exit of this samsara? Why would we want them to come back to samsara?
Well, the thing is, we need them to come back because they're qualified to teach us. You know, it's not that they want to come back. They'll come back out of their compassion for us. They can come back out of their skillful means for us. So once we understand, but they only come back because if we're making like extensive prayers, or from their side, they see there's beings to benefit. you know, but they don't come back just to hang out in a body and get old and sick and die and, you know, deal with all the politics. I mean, I mean, you know, who would want to come back for that, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's more about it's almost like they use this expression. They have these, you know, there's these holy bodies, Rupakaya, Dharmakaya, these bodies that Buddhas have that we see in the images, you know, in the pictures. They're like light bodies and they're made of wisdom and compassion. So they have these bodies, you know. So they don't, but when they come back here, it's like they put on a coat, a jacket, so we can see them. Because they do exist in other realms. They abide and exist in pure realms, but we can't communicate. We're not there, you know. We can't hang out there with them. One of my friends many years ago, when her teacher passed away, she shared with me that she had a dream quite soon after. She spent a lot of time around that teacher, and she had a dream that he said, if I remember rightly, something like, "I'm going over there, but you can't come right now." And like she understood he was going to some pure place, but she didn't have the karma to go. You know, I can't quite remember how she expressed it, but the feeling was like, and she knew for the dream, like it wasn't like he didn't want her to come. She doesn't have the karma, you know, to go there. But that teacher has since come back and come back into this world. But at that time, he was going off to another pure place, you know, and that's not somewhere she was able to go right now. You need to have the karma and merit for that, these pure lands. I mean, the Christians do talk about heaven, yeah? In this tradition, maybe when you do the module with Venerable Sangye Kagyo, I think it might come up more the different realms. So in this tradition, there is we don't call it heaven, we call it a God realm. And I think that's very similar to heaven in the Christian tradition, which is not necessarily a pure land. Pure land is because you have a level of merit and you can also go there and receive teachings in that place. So the teachers come back only because they have so much compassion to help us. And they have to come back in this body, otherwise we can't see like light bodies, and well, maybe some people can, you know. Anyway, is that okay, Asha? Is that
Yeah. Yeah.
we'll do one more question because I noticed it's 9 o'clock and I know we've done 2 hours already. So otherwise, maybe we could just do, I think Joe asked first. We'll do Joe, or maybe you have a comment, Joe, and then Ladan, if you can hold your question to next week, is that okay? Just write it down. We'll do it next week. Yeah, Joe.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on your friend's dream. Jesus, you know, the Christ, he said the same thing to, you know, whoever it was. But on that note, very quickly, I read that I'm sure it was His Holiness believes that Jesus was a reincarnation of the Buddha. Can I find it anywhere? No. So can you confirm, or can anyone confirm that His Holiness has said that or believes? I believe that, but I can't find where I'm pretty sure I read it.
I thought my understanding was, but you can check with other teachers as well, that we see the Buddha, that we see Jesus as a bodhisattva. So when you study the paths and grounds, you know, there's 10 levels of developing bodhicitta before you become a Buddha. So I think in this tradition, the Buddha is seen as a bodhisattva. So it's definitely definitely was a holy being, a saint. And, you know, there's no question. We recognize that in this tradition. St. Francis of Assisi, also Lama Zopa Rinpoche, had a lot of respect for him. He was regarded as a bodhisattva in our tradition. That's what we would label him here, which I really like about this tradition, because when you understand the levels of spiritual achievement, you know, where all the path, it's like you can slot in these saints, you know, they're here, they're there, you know, you acknowledge their sainthood, you know, but maybe not Buddhahood, but certainly a high level of bodhisattva. So I think that's how we would regard him in this tradition. And I have heard stories that the Jesus, when he kind of arose again, went to the India and actually sought out the Buddha to kind of maybe complete his path, you know. So
He documented that he did go there during the time, you know, for a few years, and there are records of people will know this anyway. in the monasteries of him visiting. But I just wondered if you could confirm or deny that you know, as he said, whether he. I know I read it, but I can't find where I read it. But anyway, thank you.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I haven't read that. I know that he's acknowledged as a bodhisattva, and then he went to India, and it's very possible he received teachings for the Buddha, you know.
Yeah, there is a documentary in BBC that said that Jesus was a Buddhist. Yeah.
Yeah, Buddhist, yeah. I mean, if you read the teachings, it's all Buddhist teachings. If you interpret it from the Buddhist viewpoint, you know, there's no question, you know. Okay, so thank you so much for all your questions and feedback, and yeah, it's really, really nice to get lots of questions. So we will, because of the time, we will continue next week, finish off a few things I wanted to cover this week and go into a little bit more on. Sorry, I think we go into it anyway when we go through these prayers, hopefully just deepening and understanding the practice, you know, a little bit more. And just when and if you have time, just carry on with the readings, please. And those of you who haven't heard from me, please send me your assessment because I didn't receive it yet. So just send me directly to my email, or send it to Bay even, and she can forward it. At this point might be better. So whatever's, yeah, but as I said, directly to me or through Bay if you don't have my email address, and I will get some of those recordings together for you for next week. Okay. Janju Senjo Rinpoche Mage Panam Gyurshik Gepa Nyamba Mepa Ye Gonne Gondu Pelwar Shok. May the precious Supreme Bodhicitta not yet born arise. May that arisen not decline but increase more and more. Due to this virtue, may I quickly become a Guru Buddha and lead all transmigratory beings without exception to that state. And dedicating all the positive energy of the class, so each one of us may be able to really, if we haven't already, establish a firm daily practice that gives us joy and inspiration. And if we're already got one, may it deepen, helping to gradually deepen our practice and our connection with the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, our teachers, with the lineage, you know, giving us everything we need for our spiritual development up to enlightenment. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. See you next
Everybody.
week. Thank you.
You.
Bye.
Bye-bye.